Good morning from where I am, good afternoon perhaps where some of you are. I'm Simon Masters, the Deputy Director for the Future Flight Challenge, and it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you today. I do have some slides. I will try and share those now, so hopefully those will be visible to everyone. So yes, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Future Flight Challenge program, what we are doing, and where we are going in the future with our drone activities, and really highlighting the opportunities that we're creating in the UK, but also the opportunities we are seeing for global partnerships and global collaboration. We're very much aware that we can't do all of this on our own, and we very much welcome your attention to this morning. So quite a lot has happened recently in the UK to do with drones. We've had the government's drone ambition statement has been issued, which sets out the government's priorities for the use of drones. And we've also had a report from PwC looking at the economics, the business cases, and some of the predictions of how the industry will look in the next sort of 5 to 10 years' time. And all of that, of course, continuing our program, which we launched back in 2019 and will now run all the way until 2024. So we have 2 more years to achieve quite a lot of work, and I'll go through some of that now. So there we go. So the Future Flight Challenge, we are addressing mainly what people are mostly calling the third revolution in aviation. So aviation has quite a short history by many standards, just over 100 years perhaps, but we're seeing some big changes now, particularly the introduction of drones and other autonomous flying vehicles, so that they're really going to, as we see it, transform how we move people, how we move goods, and how we deliver services in the future. So what does all that mean for the public? It means many things. These are just some examples. So it could mean faster medical deliveries and better capability to respond to disaster relief scenarios. It can make inspection and maintenance tasks much safer and cheaper, and it can be more inclusive. So we can find ways of transporting people who are less mobile and less able, all the way through to last mile deliveries, which is quite a common thing we talk about, and the way that we can new forms of green aviation can help connect rural economies. So our program is very complex and very broad, but in the center we have these different vehicle types, but actually that's not where the main focus is. The main focus is in the sort of ring around the outside, and what we're aiming to do is to build this ecosystem that these vehicles will operate in. For us, just simply funding the technologies themselves does not answer the question. If you have a lot of new technology that you can't use, then you haven't really succeeded. So we need to address some or all of those items you can see. I won't read them out, but these are some of the other areas that we're looking in, focusing on things like regulation, on infrastructure, and communication systems. So we have a roadmap, we have a vision statement that sort of looks out to about 2030, and we've used that to try and guide what we're doing and to really help challenge ourselves, but also challenge industry as to how these new vehicles might be used. This is just our view. We are very open to be challenged on this. There may be other people with better ideas, but these are some of the scenarios and some of the use cases that we see for the future of these sorts of autonomous flying vehicles. As I said, because this is quite a new industry, we can't just focus on the traditional aviation and aerospace industry. We need to bring in people with skills from across different sectors, such as infrastructure, civil engineering, for example, for vertiports. We need people who know about software and communication systems. So all of that needs to be brought together in order to achieve what we want to do. And of course, we've trying to put people at the center of this, both in terms of the societal benefits that people, you and I, might get from the services these new vehicles provide, but also to try and understand some of the social science aspects. What will the public think? How noisy is too noisy when it comes to a drone flying over people's houses? You know, what is the public perception going to be of introducing these new technologies? And bringing that all together, and I know that the text is very small here, but this is just really illustrating. We try to bring this all together into a sort of a series of concepts as to how these drones, for example, will fit into sort of a modern integrated city, and in a modern integrated transport system. And I think this is just a sort of a repeat of what I've said, so I'll skip over that one. So what have we done so far? So we've funded 48 collaborative research projects in what we call phase 2. Most of these are now finishing. They covered a really wide range of projects, and some of them were very successful, and as you can probably see, were picked up by the news media, and that was great, and we were very, very proud of what was achieved through those projects. Again, pictures perhaps tell more than words. So these are some of the ideas and some of the aircraft that were developed, and some of the services they provided, including the one in the bottom left is one of my favorite ones. It was a trial with a drone dropping an emergency defibrillator on behalf of the ambulance service to look at if you could deliver sort of vital life-saving equipment like that safely. It does have a parachute attached. That was the main concern, actually, was to make sure that that when you're dropping things near to people, near to casualties, that you don't cause them any injury if it lands in the wrong place. We also were able to use our funding and our position as a government agency to support the UK government's COVID-19 response efforts. There was a tremendous interest from the drone community in the UK to try and help out where they could. And so we did a number of activities, really starting to demonstrate how drones could be used to deal with very, very large sort of challenges that the UK and indeed many other countries were facing at the time. There was a number of firsts that we managed during that period. We did some public perception studies about carrying drones and for medical delivery. We were able to do the first, certainly in the UK, transport of chemotherapy drugs by drone. We delivered COVID test kits offshore to ships so that ships didn't have to come into harbours and potentially have people interacting more than necessary. So we were able to fly those test kits out to ships. And we also received clearance to fly 2 of the COVID vaccines that were cleared for use at the time by drone. I'll say a little bit more about that one. This was a project that we were very, very proud of. It was in the southwest of the UK, in Cornwall, and was operating out to the Isles of Scilly, which are about 70 nautical miles off the coast, and islands that are reliant on boats to provide their mail, to provide their medicines, and this was obviously more challenging during the COVID period. So we managed to do some working with the Royal Mail, who not only deliver mail but also deliver medical supplies to these islands. We were able to use a drone to fly completely autonomously from the mainland to these islands. And then a number of smaller drones were then used to fly between the different islands. And this was the first time this had been approved. So we had to do a lot of work both with aviation regulators and with health regulators to ensure that they were happy that carrying the COVID-19 vaccines by drone was safe, and that it wouldn't affect the kind of efficacy of the drugs themselves due to temperature or vibration. So that really started to show what is possible using drones in this way. This kind of takes us up to where we are today with our program. This is a slide my boss always likes to show. In the middle, we have the funding that we give for the R&D projects. What we do like to say is that around the outside of that, there's all kinds of other stuff that isn't actually as immediately obvious. It's not about giving out large sums of money to businesses. It's not about technology. It's actually about creating those wider systems. So it's working with regulators, working with the Met Office to look at what weather services drones may need. It's looking at standards, and it's looking at things like public engagement. So this is just really to show that whilst we talk a lot about the technology, and that's what excites and inspires us, there's a lot of other work that goes on to try and create this kind of future system that drones will operate in. Having said that, this summer we announced another 17 projects, which were announced by our then Secretary of State. He is now for business. He's now our Chancellor. Kwasi Kwarteng announced these new R&D projects at the Farnborough Air Show this summer. There's quite a lot of information here. I just want to pick out some of the key things. For us, we wanted to challenge these projects to be even more ambitious and to actually showcase what drones can do by almost exactly 2 years' time in September 2024. We want them to demonstrate the full service that they want to deliver as much as possible, as much as regulation allows. So they are working with a lot of end users, and many of these are public sector organizations. So we have the National Health Service in England and in Scotland taking part. We have work with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office and the Ministry of Defence, looking at humanitarian aid and disaster relief programs and how drones can support the work that UK agencies and the Royal Navy carry out in delivering disaster relief to countries all over the world. I think I've already said that. I'll skip over that one. So again, some photos to show this. So there is a really wide range of looking at the applications of drones. So some of it is about infrastructure inspection in the bottom left, power lines, things that can be done more safely by drone. There is increasing focus on using drones to support maritime operations. And actually, interestingly, in the middle photo, forest fires, and we'll say, I've got a short video clip, we'll say a bit more about that, but that's to say that's not something that's historically been important in the UK, but is actually in the recent heat wave that we had, becoming increasingly of concern to our fire and rescue services. And actually, we may start to see, as temperatures rise in the UK, increasingly issues with wildfires across some of our more rural areas. We are working with the regulators. It's one of the kind of unique features of our program is we're working very closely with the Civil Aviation Authority and working with regulators. Regulators working with R&D organisations is not that common, and it's certainly been a tricky relationship for us to understand. It's very easy to blame the regulators as the ones who stop you doing what you want to do. I think we've got a much better understanding having worked with them now. So the tough job that they have in clearing, beyond visual line of sight operations and allowing drones to carry chemotherapy drugs, all the sorts of things that, excuse me, that companies want to do. We're trying to work with the regulators so that they can develop their regulatory frameworks in parallel to the technology development. And one of the areas where we've done that is in the carriage of dangerous goods, or DG as it's called on here, by drones. We did this during COVID-19 as a starter, but really started to look at things like what sort of container do you need in your drone, and what standards does that container need to have so that you can put any sort of dangerous chemical, a vaccine, a chemotherapy drugs, whatever it is, and you know that that will be approved by the regulator, and you know that it will be safe. So if there is a mishap with the drone, that these chemicals will not escape into the local water systems. So that's a key piece of work that we've done, and that's been really well received by industry. And just as a quick example, these are some of the things that it covered. So looking at things about approved packaging and whether that could be approved in the UK, whether it could be approved globally, so that if some of the operators are working in other countries, such as in Africa, Malawi, some of our companies who want to work in there, they will be able to use the same standard of containers. Also things about what level of training people need to unload packages from drones. It sounds really simple, but actually there's a huge amount of work needed to, or thought needs to go in terms of skills and training for individuals who may end up having to unload, potentially dangerous chemicals from drones. I'm going to finish with a quick video. This is from one of our new projects. I hope the sound works. There are subtitles if the sound doesn't work very well. This is one of our new projects that's starting this summer, and it hopefully will explain itself, and hopefully will demonstrate why we're so excited about the future. once was enough. So yes, I think I'm pretty much out of time. So thank you very much for your attention. If there are time for some questions, very happy to take those now. I will just stop that sharing.